theme song was on the button accordion. Thank you. Buenos dias, artistas. Hello, artists. We're going to revisit a classic today with a twist. Emmylou the art dog and I love foodscapes. And I know you've already done a foodscape this year, some of you. So today, instead of reading Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs, we're going to read the sequel, Pickles to Pittsburgh. And we're going to learn about seascapes. This is by Hokusai. It's a woodcut. It's very famous and very cool. And landscapes. This is by Paul Cézanne. It's called Mont Saint-Victory. And cityscapes. This is by John Sloan. It's called The City from Greenwich Village. And then I have an invented word for you, a foodscape. Now, this one's not finished. This was a hamburger storm. Foodscape is not a real art word. I just made it up. But we're going to make some anyway today. And if you want more ideas, you can Google the trailer to the movie Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs and gets even more ideas if this book doesn't give you enough. It's very fun and let's enjoy it. Pickles to Pittsburgh, the sequel to Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs. Remember, a sequel is like when the same author and illustrator writes another book that's related. For instance, the Harry Potter series would be several sequels. Dear Henry and Kate, I'm having the best vacation ever, but I don't get much rest. I really wish you were here. Our group travels around in a big blue bus, and somehow it manages to climb up and down the tallest and bumpiest mountains and around some of the biggest plants I've ever seen. We have visited many unusual places, met the local people, and even helped them out with some of their chores. I'm taking lots of pictures because this place is hard to believe. Can't wait till I see you next Thursday. Love and hugs, Grandpa. We all missed Grandpa an awful lot. His Saturday morning pancakes, his mostly funny jokes, and especially his wonderful bedtime stories. Tomorrow would be Thursday, and he'd be home. We could hardly wait to hear where he had been and what he had done. To pass the time, we helped Mom make spaghetti and meatballs for dinner. Henry made the largest meatballs I'd ever seen. They barely fit into the pot, and Mom thanked us for helping, but asked that the meatballs be much smaller next time. After we finished reading, Henry and I cleared the table so we could help bake our special welcome home cake for Grandpa. It was chocolate with strawberry icing and made in the shape of Grandpa's face. We licked as much of the batter off the spoons as we possibly could. Now notice when they start to dream, that's when it turns to color, just like in the first book. I took Grandpa's postcard up to my room and put it on the little table beside my bed, and I kept staring at it and wondering. The lamplight made bright a photograph of a wonderful place that somehow seemed familiar, and I said good night to it and drifted off into my dreams. Surrounded by milky blue skies and with Henry as my co-pilot, we carefully steer our plane through large puffs of mist. Soon we found ourselves soaring over an island, a very lumpy island. From the air it looks like a gigantic feast. Immense vegetables, salads, and desserts lie beneath us. The mountains look like huge loaves of bread. We decided to take a closer look and prepare ourselves for a bumpy landing. Avoiding some broccoli and narrowly missing a tremendous hamburger on an oversized bun, we came down and taxied on what appeared to be giant strips of crisp bacon. Henry and I stepped down from the plane and look around in awe. Before us lies a strange but wonderful landscape. We're surrounded by larger-than-life vegetables. Nearby is a lake that smells like breakfast, bordered by leafy jungles of lettuce that resemble a tossed salad. We try to keep our balance as we walk around the top of a gigantic bagel and past a forest of towering carrots. One is pierced by a tunnel large enough for a car to drive through. Off in the distance, we see popcorn snowing down onto peaks of enormous rolls. Way above our heads, high up in the trees that look like broccoli, chubby birds are nesting in huge shredded wheat biscuits. Ahead of us, at the end of a long road, lies what looks like an abandoned town. Eager to know where we are, we start walking toward it. Sweet-smelling rain begins to fall. It collects in hundreds of open containers that are lined up in a field beside the road. Lots of orange juice puddles are everywhere. Orange juice! All of a sudden, we find ourselves standing in the shadow of a giant tuna fish sandwich being delicately airlifted by helicopter. In the distance, another helicopter races off with a jumbo pickle in tow. When we reach what's left of the town, we see the remains of a sign welcoming us to a place called Chew and Swallow. Somehow I know I've heard that name before. We walk through the entire town in amazement. Up ahead, lots of workers wearing helmets and dressed in matching uniforms are loading huge potatoes onto a truck. Other trucks sag under the weight of immense artichokes, enormous eggplants, and massive peas and carrots. Foot-long veal cutlets are stacked up to be packed off for shipping. To the east, the weather is changing, and we can see sandwiches raining down. As soon as they land, they're piled up neatly, ready for a shipment on a freighter and anchored down by the shore. Shipping schedule: Monday, eggplants to Ecuador, chili to Chile, milk to Milwaukee, hamburgers to Hamburg. Tuesday, pickles to Pittsburgh, pears to Paris, artichokes to Argentina. Large reservoirs of milk and cream flow into extra-large containers which are lined up ready to be loaded onto a ship. Printed on the sides of the trucks are the words, Falling Food Company, large food for large and small countries, free. One of the workers tells us that Chew and Swallow used to be a very ordinary little town, except that instead of weather, food rained down from the sky for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Back then, he says, by some quirk of nature, the falling food grew larger and larger, and storms of gigantic food threatened normal life. So the people took their belongings and sailed away to a new land on rafts made of huge slices of stale bread. They returned years later to see what had happened to Chew and Swallow, and they discovered an endless food supply and decided to create the Falling Food Company. Now, daily shipments are made to all parts of the world, from the smallest towns to the largest cities. As soon as the food lands, it is wrapped, boxed, bottled, or packaged, and then sent out to people who need it. Even with poverty and drought throughout the world, there's always enough food for everyone. Henry and I think this is a great idea. We wish we could stay and work here, but I don't think they hire kids. It's getting late and we hate to leave, but we really have to be heading home. Mom's expecting us for dinner. The workers gave us a 2-foot wide chocolate chip cookie, which we had to carry back to the plane, and it barely fits through the door. We buckle up, I rev the engine, and we start rolling down the bacon runway. As everyone waves goodbye, we can see dinner approaching from the west. Spaghetti and meatballs, I think. As we gain altitude, Chew and Swallow slowly vanishes into the distance. My alarm clock woke me with a jolt. It was finally Thursday, and I wanted to get to school fast. The sooner I got there, the sooner I'd get home, and the sooner I would see Grandpa. When we got home, we ran as fast as we could into Grandpa's waiting arms. I brought back something special for you, said Grandpa, and he gave us each a very large box containing a chocolate chip cookie he had gotten on his trip. They were the biggest we had ever seen, almost 2 feet wide. Mom made Grandpa's favorite dinner, chicken and dumplings, and we surprised him with our special welcome home cake. He chose the slice with the mustache. By the time dinner was done, it was late and Grandpa was tired. When he was all tucked in bed, we knocked on his door to give him an extra goodnight kiss. Then I told Grandpa the most wonderful tall-tale bedtime story he'd ever heard. It began, surrounded by milky blue skies, and with Henry as my co-pilot. Grandpa stayed awake until the very end. Then he looked at us with a funny glint in his eye, and he said, "Wait till I show you the pictures I took on my trip." And he drifted off into his own wonderful dreams. So let's think about a foodscape. Today I'm going to use pencil and crayons, but you could do this with colored pencil. Just do pencil and don't add color. You could use marker. Crayon might be smeary, but you're the artist. If you want to use crayon, by all means, go ahead. So here I have a banana boat with a peppermint mast and a Swiss cheese sail and marshmallow clouds and a fried egg cloud and pea soup for the ocean. Here I have a giant storm of hamburgers. So I'm going to work small so that my demonstration is faster. And here's some spaghetti flying all over the sky. Here's some meatballs, they're giant. This one is stuck right on top of a church spire. The meatball got stuck there when it landed. Here's the church. Okay, and now we have an apartment, a very tall skyscraper kind of apartment building. And it has an enormous donut sitting right on top of it. And it's a donut with sprinkles. It's got chocolate icing and sprinkles. Okay. And the occupants are scared. They're going to leave the building because they're afraid it's going to be crushed by the giant donut. Because the donut is enormous. So here's my windows. Then I have right here a huge drumstick, chicken drumstick, blocking the entrance to a couple of homes. They're behind the drumstick, but the drumstick is so big you can't even see the home. You just see a little bit of an edge right there. And we have a giant bunch of grapes headed right toward that drumstick. You can see why the people who lived here were forced to abandon this town. Clearly not safe. And then over here we have a little house. And these people are very nervous. They decided they better abandon their home for safety because there's a giant pancake on it with a pat of butter, and the maple syrup is just covering, everything is so sticky they can't stay there. It's just too sticky. And then we have some cherries flying through the air. More cherries. And we've got some strawberries. Here we have a tree that has been crushed by the giant drumstick. The park had to close because there's giant strawberry on all the playground equipment. And we have some huge chocolate chip cookies flying through the air. So you guys get the picture. Once you do your pencil, go over your pencil with crayon or marker or colored pencil, or just leave it in pencil. Remember, you're the artist. For our Art at Home series, you always do it the way that works best for you. After you go over your pencil, then you can color. And when you're all set, you'll have a wonderful foodscape. So, I hope you enjoy making foodscapes, my friend. Remember, landscapes, cityscapes, and seascapes are real art words. Miss you. Bye-bye.